Hello and welcome back to the Spicy Relationship Summit. I'm your host, relationship coach Mark Allen. Today I'd like you to meet Aria Diana, relationship coach, author of Navigating Non-Monogamy, and creator of the TRUE True Relating Method. With 10 years plus of polyamory experience, she helps people overcome insecurities and deepen communication for truly nourishing relationships. Welcome, Aria.
Thank you so much. Good to be here with you.
Good to have you today. So let's jump right in here. So I hear from a lot of couples that are intellectually excited about opening their relationship, but when it actually comes to doing it, they are hit with panic attacks or overwhelming anxiety. What's happening in our nervous systems during those moments?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that I see really frequently with my clients, this kind of mind-body disconnect. Mentally, we're on board with the idea of freedom and expansion and more liberated relationships. But when it comes time to actually see your partner go out the door on a first date with someone else or have a new sexual experience with someone else, our body can brace, we can shut down, we can get, into these panicked, triggered states. And it's really helpful to figure out what's happening on the nervous system level and how we can slow things down so that we can stay inside of our window of tolerance, which is the ideal zone that we're in our nervous system. And so for some people, when they get triggered by the thought of, the person they love most in the world connecting with someone else, they can go into a hyperarousal state, which is that fight or flight state where their nervous system is ramping up, they're getting ready to run or to fight. And then for other people, when they get triggered, they can fall into more of a hypoarousal shutdown state, which is more of the freeze states, the fawn states, which can also, we can think about that as kind of the people pleasing behaviors where we kind of go offline. And so, usually in these moments of feeling triggered, we're not reacting to what's happening in the moment, but we're kind of time traveling back to a time in the past where we were hurt, we were wounded, maybe somebody broke our heart. And so, there's something about the present moment that's reminding us of the past. So, we really need to slow down in those moments, take care of our nervous system through self regulation, which can look like going for a walk, moving our body, stimulating our vagus nerve, which runs from our brainstem down through our chest into our major vital organs. Humming is a great way to self-regulate, singing, anything that really works with the vagus nerve. And then we can also think about how do we take care of ourselves through co-regulation, which is those moments where we feel attuned with someone else's nervous system. We feel seen and connected and supported. So that can look like taking some deep breaths together, going for a walk hand in hand, having clear agreements about how we're going to move through a new experience. That all those things can help us stay settled and inside that window of tolerance, which is a practice. We have to figure out what works for us to help us stay open and regulated and curious. So yeah, it's definitely a practice of figuring out what works for us and what we need to really feel calm on a nervous system level to feel cared for.
So is there any way we can like practice this before we have those events crop out? I will share one of mine. This is something I didn't even realize I was doing, but when I go get my teeth cleaned, I just try to put myself into to a state, where I'm just sort of not sleeping, but not really reacting to what's going on in my mouth because sometimes it hurts, and I I realize if I jump and stuff, it's probably going to dig in further, and I probably don't want that. So just finding
Mhm.
ways to take and just breathe and do that has helped me in that. So that's how I practice. Are there other methods that you'd recommend?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think the more self-awareness we can have kind of about our trigger signatures. So most people have a core wound that they're reacting to that gets activated with non-monogamy, right? If we've been broken up with in the past, if we've had our heart broken, there's probably a core wound that we're going to get abandoned and left behind again. So if we can know that that's a tender place inside of us, we can work with that part that's still holding on to the story that we're going to be abandoned, that we're going to be left behind. One of the modalities I like to work with is called internal family systems, which believes that we're made up of a collection of parts. Each of these parts has a story and a belief and a strategy for keeping us safe. And most of these parts come online when we're younger and they have a strategy that worked maybe in the past, which was maybe to disassociate, to leave the room, to, if our parents are fighting, maybe that was our strategy to stay safe. We kind of emotionally checked out. So learning to turn towards these parts that are still expecting to get hurt, that are still bracing for pain, and really befriending them, mapping them, getting to know all the different stories and parts inside of us, and becoming friends with them. I think a lot of people kind of avoid looking inwards when they feel uncomfortable. It's easier to run away or blame someone else. But the more we can slow down and really get to know, okay, what's going on inside of me? Why do I feel so afraid of my partner connecting with someone else? And what do I need to really relax and trust that they are going to come back to me? It definitely, yeah, it's a practice of, getting used to a new relationship structure. I like to think about it as we're not just moving into a new relationship structure, but we're moving into a new nervous system paradigm, and we need new tools and skills that are going to help us feel at ease when there is a more complex relationship ecosystem around us.
So how do we identify that previous trauma or whatever to be able to, I've heard various people say, just sit with it and I mean, number one is to I think validate it, to say that, it's okay that you feel this way, and I'm here for you. It's like, is that how else can we really get in touch with that younger self usually?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think, in those moments of activation, it usually shows up as a mix of sensations, right? Maybe we feel a tight chest or, clenched hands. There's the feelings. Maybe we feel alone or afraid. And then there's the thoughts. And we can't, the sensations and the feelings happen pretty quickly, but we want to pay attention to what are the thoughts that we're having about this. Are they disempowering thoughts? A lot of people, when they get insecure around open relationships, can have really unproductive, not very nice thoughts. And so we really want to really notice, like, what is the story that I'm spinning in my head when I think about my partner going on a date with someone else? Am I creating a narrative that I'm going to get left and abandoned? And can I consciously choose more compassionate thoughts? Can I flip that thought on in its head? Right? If the story is I'm going to get abandoned, or my partner wants to date someone else, so that must mean I'm not enough. It's like, how can we work with those beliefs? And mononormative conditioning is definitely underneath that, right? All of us were probably raised in a culture where monogamy was the only or default way of relating. And so there's a lot of work on a subconscious level to really excavate, like, what are the beliefs inside of me? What are the stories I'm telling myself? And can I be more compassionate with myself? Can I hold those younger parts with care? And it's work we can do, on our own intentionally with journaling, through the help of helping professionals, coaches, or therapists. And for me personally, another really great way that I've learned to work with these younger scared parts is through psychedelics and intentional healing experiences, and breath work, and really experiences that get me more in the body. I think talk therapy is great, and I think a lot of people need more of a somatic approach. So finding a somatic therapist, learning to, yeah, kind of release some of this old stuff in the body.
Okay, you're the first one that I've heard talk about psychedelics. So let's
Hmm.
you can go down that road a little bit for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's so much healing potential in psychedelics. I live in California where they are decriminalized. I've sat in ayahuasca ceremonies, plant medicine ceremonies, mushrooms, MDMA, ketamine therapy. I think all of these substances, when used intentionally, can really help us release old limiting beliefs, get in touch with parts of us that maybe we have, tucked away in the back of a closet. It's kind of like shining a light on some of the parts of us that maybe we haven't connected with. And I also like to think about, psychedelics introduces us to this idea of set and setting, which I think is such a helpful framework that we can bring into potentially spicy relationship experiences. So when we think about set and setting, it's like, okay, how do I set up this potentially spicy new experience? If we think about it like a play party, we can think about the set, which is our internal landscape. What is my mindset going into this? Can I have a vulnerable conversation with my partner before we move into this space and make sure that we're prepared to have a positive experience and to keep the spicy experience in like the hot, pleasurable realm and not in like the spicy, scalding, we're getting burned realm? So we want to, yeah, create an atmosphere where we can be open to receive the pleasure and the expansion and the nourishment. And then when we think about the setting part of it, it's like, how are we stepping into this experience? What is the wider relationship ecosystem? how are we relating to the other people in the experience, and what is the physical setting for this? So if we're thinking about it as an example of a play party, it's like, okay, what are the agreements of the space? How are other people conducting themselves? How are we interpreting consent? And do we all have a shared language so that we can all, relax into the space and really have it be a positive experience?
Yeah, my wife and I go to a monthly house party, and we always on the road there, have the talk as we call it, and to say,
Mhm.
what are how are we going to operate at this event, and what's sometimes we'll do one thing, and sometimes like, no, I really just feel like we should just take and just enjoy the crowd tonight. Okay, and
Mhm.
it's been very important to us to take and set those stuff on a party by party basis, not therefore we verbalize what the rules are for this, as opposed to going, well, what were our rules before?
Hmm. Yeah, and I like to think about like how can we create agreements and care plans before going into big experiences like this. So if we know what our potential triggers are, if we know that, being surprised is a trigger, maybe we don't want to turn around and see our partner kissing someone else. So maybe we go slow and create a plan. It's like, okay, before I go have an experience with someone else, let's have that moment of co-regulation, right? Where we're connecting with the person we came with and we're checking in. And then it's like, okay, do you feel good? Can I go have this experience with someone else? And then we go have that experience and it's like, okay, what do we need afterwards? How do we want to come back together and come back into connection? I think it's helpful to know that our nervous system is either moving us towards connection or towards protection. So if we feel shut down or afraid, it's going to change the way we experience the same situation. So the state of our nervous system is always influencing how we're interpreting the world around us. So we really want to be as intentional as possible before we go into spicy relationship experiences and make sure that we're, coming at it from a place of openness and curiosity. And sometimes that means having agreements that we're going to move slower together or we're not going to, you know, play with other people that night. And I think really knowing your limits and honoring them is kind of how we stretch into these new experiences and expand our capacity. I think sometimes people move too quickly, and that's kind of where things get broken, or then there's repair that's needed. And I think, yeah, there's nothing like having a new big spicy experience to really find where our boundaries were. And sometimes we find they were actually, we just walked past them and they were way back there.
Yeah, I've been bringing up Emily Nagasaki's gas and brake, uh, whatever the word I'm looking for is, in this series a lot, because it seems like that's in most relationships that's the way it is, that one's pushing us to go forward and one's going, no, I'm not really sure, and I think
Yeah.
really going at the pace of that slowest person is the best way to go. That
Yeah.
certainly worked well for us.
Yeah, yeah, and I often hear from my clients that there's some shame around needing to ask your partner to slow down, right? Again, it's that kind of the disconnect between like mentally, I really want you to go have this experience, but physically I'm freaking out. So it's like, how can we honor our body's capacity and create agreements that allow us to move at the speed of trust, which usually means moving at the speed of the slowest person.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how do we tell the difference between a genuine boundary that we need to honor versus a fear-based reaction that might be holding us back from growth? Because sometimes it's really hard to know which is which in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think of an authentic boundary as something that's rooted in clarity and care that really honors our nervous system capacity. We know, like, okay, I'm open to going to this party, but I don't want us to have physical engagement with someone else because that's going to feel like too much, right? It's like that's a deep sense of knowing where your edges are and being able to take care of yourself. I think a fear-based reaction often looks like trying to control someone else's autonomy. And often, when we're in one of these triggered nervous system states, the first thing we reach for is control, right? I feel afraid, so I'm going to try to latch onto you and slow you down. So I think in those moments, when we have a big fear-based reaction coming up, it's really natural that we want to try to control each other as a way to grasp onto safety. But I think when we are able to share our vulnerable fears, um, it makes it easier to come to some agreements together. Like, okay, here's how we're going to agree to move through this space together so that we're not shutting down, so that we're not overriding our nervous system capacity. And um, yeah, it can be a fine line, and I'm guessing most people who move through, opening up a relationship, there are those moments where you want to control your partner, and I think being able to name that, like, I'm afraid right now, and this feels like too much. Can we come up with some agreement that allows us to ease into this? Is a really good practice, and it's hard for us, right? We don't want to be seen as controlling or not capable or needy, but I think honoring that you have needs and usually moving slower than we think we want to is a good advice for most people.
Yeah, I think you build a lot of trust with your partner
Yeah.
in doing that as well. That if they're not quite ready to do this, can we go to this party and just take and be together and just soak up the sexy atmosphere of it, and if that's what the one partner wants, then agreeing to that and really sticking by it, and not trying to cop a feel, if you will, or something like that that would
Hmm.
see that partner as breaking that. I think that really helps us build trust that
Absolutely.
in other situations they can trust us to take and honor our agreements.
Yeah, I think, yeah, honoring our agreements is such a great way to build our capacity and expand what we're able to hold, and through that repetition, like, okay, we're going to go to this party, we're going to have agreements, we're going to keep them, and we're going to realize, like, oh, this is safe, I can enjoy this, I can relax a little bit more. Okay, maybe next time we can, widen our boundaries a little bit more and experience one more new thing. I think that's such a beautiful way to approach these potentially spicy experiences. Is like, let's build the capacity to be able to hold it. Let's not go jump in the deep end and then expect we're
Yeah,
gonna swim gracefully, right? It's like, let's start out in the kiddie pool and feel the water and be like, oh, okay, this is different. I'm not drowning. Cool. Right? It's like those moments where we see our partner go connect with someone else and they come back to us. It's like building that trust. Like, okay, they're going to go out and they're going to come back, and I'm not going to get abandoned. I'm not going to lose my place. I'm not gonna not belong here anymore. I think that's really what it means to honor the nervous system, is moving at the speed of trust.
yeah. I know I've seen so many people with stuff, right? We're just dipping our toes in the water of this, and it's like
Mhm.
that's I try to validate that's perfectly fine. That's the
Yeah.
way we were, and you just can't take and bite it all off at once. You got to allow yourself to adapt to the new relationship style.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if we're coming from a lifetime of monogamy, and there's
Yeah,
probably some subconscious beliefs that what we're doing is wrong or shameful or
yeah,
bad, right? It's like learning to rewire all of that. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe a relationship doesn't have to follow this escalator, right? Maybe we can just
yeah.
enjoy the experience and hang out on this level for a while and get comfortable here before we add more weight on top.
All right, let's move to talking about the J word. So jealousy and
Mm.
insecurity can make us feel shameful, like we're supposed to be evolved enough not to feel those things. Can you walk us through what's actually happening in the body when we feel jealous and how we can respond with compassion instead of beating ourselves up for it?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually just ran a workshop, how to stop interpreting your insecurities as evidence in non-monogamy. And I
Ooh,
have a four-part process that I lead people through. And the first part is really about noticing, like, okay, how am I interpreting this jealousy? Like I said, am I creating a story where I'm going to get left behind, where somehow I'm not worthy enough, or my partner wanting to connect with someone else means something about how good I am? So I think slowing down enough to be like, okay, the sensation is a tight chest, the feeling is terror. And the story I'm telling myself is I'm about to get left behind. And so it's like, how can we, the second part is like, how do we flip that thought and think about, okay, what are three other alternatives that might be the story that's happening here? Maybe my partner is naturally non-monogamous. Maybe no matter how good I am, they're always going to be curious about connecting with other people. Maybe they have a part of them that they've never given themselves permission to explore. So it's like, how do we widen the lens of what's actually happening here, and how can we take it less personally? And then we really want to meet the parts of us that are feeling insecure and figure out what is the need underneath there. For most of us, there's a need to be validated, to receive reassurance. And how can we turn towards those younger parts and figure out what they need so that they can relax? And then we really want to regulate before we communicate. So we want to take a walk, we want to eat a good meal, sleep through the night. And then it's like, okay, now that we've come back a little bit into center, how can we share with our partner what came up for us? Tell them, like, own our feelings and express them in a way that we're asking, making a clear ask that they're likely to meet. So it's like, hey, I felt really jealous yesterday when you went on a date. Can we prioritize some quality time this weekend? That's probably going to land a lot better and you're going to get your need met for connection than if you say, you're such a jerk and you never take me out on a date, right? So it's like, how can we regulate before we communicate and reach out for that reassurance? And I think learning how to not communicate from a triggered state is a practice that I do with most of my clients. Like, how can we slow things down and figure out, okay, what's the need? What's getting triggered here? And how can we ask for it in a way that other people are going to meet us in that? I think that kind of process can help us slow things down, knowing that insecurity can come online really fast and trigger these different states of the nervous system before we even realize what's happening. So it's like, okay, how can we pay more attention when the tightness in the chest starts showing up around non-monogamy and really slow down there before it's turned into this whole big panicked jealousy story?
So if there's a situation where somebody is in a play party or something and they suddenly decide that, oh, I'm feeling jealous. I mean, you know, should they stop what's going on?
Yeah, I think so what I like to do before going into one of these potentially spicy experiences is having a microscript that I've agreed on with my partner ahead of time that either of us can say at any point, which means like, hey, well, let's take a pause on whatever's happening and go take a walk, go check in with each other. So some people like to think about it as like a stoplight, right? Green means go, yellow means like, hey, I'm starting to notice some activation. Red is like, hey, I'm way at my capacity. That can be a good framework to use as like a little micro check-in. Sometimes when we feel big feelings come online, it can be hard to express them. So having a single word or something that you can call as a request for a pause can be a really great way to avoid being in a situation where you really don't want to be there.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
So for couples who are just starting to explore, whether it's non-monogamy or even just deeper intimacy, what are the warning signs that they're moving too fast for their emotional capacity? And what's one thing they can start doing today to build more resilience?
Mm, yeah, I think signs that people are moving too fast and probably need to slow down is one or more both people aren't sleeping. They're feeling really anxious. They have old patterns that maybe they thought they healed that are coming back up, right? Maybe we have a desire to like go check our partner's phone because we feel really insecure about who they might be talking to. I think all of these are signs that there's not enough safety in the container. And the ways that we can build more of a sense of nervous system safety is creating intentional spaces to have vulnerable conversations, having a relationship check-in, figuring out, okay, what are our agreements? For a lot of people, maybe they haven't clearly defined where the edges of their container are. And I like to really shore that up. It's like, okay, for the next month, here's how we're relating, and think about it as a container that can expand over time, but the foundation of it really is that emotional safety. We want to be able to share our vulnerable feelings. We need to be able to ask for reassurance. And I think creating a space where anybody can share their feelings of jealousy and that's encouraged is a really healthy place to start. But I think learning how to express your jealousy using I statements, not making the other person the victim or the villain, can really help us build that sense of like, okay, we're on the same team. We both are going to move through this in a way that's sustainable. I think that's how we get to a place where non-monogamy can feel really nourishing is moving slowly, building that strong foundation of trust and communication and agreements, and really honoring them. It's like don't agree to something that you know you're not going to be able to honor because broken agreements are the fastest way to kind of tumble the whole structure that you're trying to build.
Yeah. Okay, so for couples that want to create more safety as they explore this new territory together, what kind of rituals or agreements actually work? Because I think a lot of people make rules that sound good on paper and don't actually support them, especially emotionally. And a lot of people, I think, just take and do it, make verbal agreements that are really problematic in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I created a resource called 100 Questions to Ask to Find Your Boundaries in Non-Monogamy. It goes through 10 different areas. It's yeah, a lot of questions, but it's really helpful. So for some people, they need stronger agreements around like shared physical space. Maybe for one person, there's a trigger around the thought of a date coming home to their shared space. For other people, maybe the trigger is more about the emotional connection with other people. So I think again, like knowing where are the areas that feel tender for you and really getting clear, okay, what are our agreements, what do we both need, and I think writing them down is a great practice, just so it's like, okay, let's be really clear and look for places where there's loopholes or murky language. I think the number one mistake I see people make when they're opening up is like, yeah, go have fun. It's like, well, what does that mean? And being really, yeah, really
Anything.
clear. Yeah, exactly. It's like sex on the first date, or are we talking about coffee? So, yeah, I think that's where writing things out. I think working with a coach or a therapist or somebody who has experience with this can help people build that strong foundation and figure out kind of the places where they need clear agreements that maybe they didn't even know that they needed to think about. Like I had one client who was really triggered that her husband was going on a first date and spending $300 with someone. And so it's like, well, do you have an agreement about how much, what is your financial budget for dating other people? And they're like, never thought about that. So I think there's all of these little places where we can get tripped up, and the more intentional and conscious we can be about what everyone needs, how we're doing this, what does non-monogamy mean to each person, and really, yeah, spelling that out so that there's not these room for assumption. I think we get in trouble when we're operating from assumptions and not having very explicit agreements.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been a great conversation, Aria. I really appreciate what you shared, especially about the nervous system, because I think a lot of us just don't, we hear fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and that's what happens. But how to really be prepared for it when it happens is very important. I know you have a free gift for our audience. Can you share what that is?
Yeah, definitely. So I have a PDF called Somatic Practices to Reduce Non-Monogamous Anxiety, and I share 3 nervous system practices that help with the self-soothing part of regulation. So you can find that on my website. And yeah, I think the more that we can really turn towards ourselves in moments of dysregulation and figure out, okay, what do I need first and foremost? And then reach for that co-regulation with a partner, which could look like a hug or reassurance or quality time together. So the more that we can work with our own nervous system first to help us come back from those fight or flight or freeze or fawn states, the easier all of this becomes. So those practices that you'll find in that guide will support you in feeling a little bit more centered and curious.
And the link to that is it will be available on the dashboard. I understand you have a gift for our VIPs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a weekly Substack newsletter called Navigating Non-Monogamy with Aria Diana. So for VIP guests, you'll get 3 months of free access to that. Right now, there's a library of 75 different long form articles and essays. And I also love to receive questions from readers. So if there's a question you're dying to get an answer to, you can send that to me through Substack, and maybe I'll write you a full essay in response.
Oh, nice. So if you're ready to keep these conversations going forever and get all the VIP gifts, VIP is still available. You'll get the lifetime recordings plus exclusive bonuses, including this one that she just mentioned. Well, thank you so much, Aria. Aria, this has been amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you creating space for people to add some more spice to their relationships. I think we all benefit when it's just the right amount of spice. Not too much so that we're going to get burned, but keep it hot and pleasurable.
Don't grab the whole spice cabinet.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.